Says here it's being recorded. I gotta click on got it. Our competition, this time we had 57 entries, which is the most we've had in a long time. And took us quite a while to get through them, but it was really worth it. It was a great competition this time. There are 3 classes, which means skill level. You can be an apprentice, you can be a intermediate, and you can be advanced. The entrant decides what he is or she. So I started out as an apprentice, and I'm in the advanced class now. I don't win very much, but I'm in the advanced class now. So I'm going to get right to it here. We have different categories, and we'll list all the categories. We had category X this time, which was cell phone, which was very well received. And if you look at the photogram, you'll see what all the different, what the breakdown was, how many we had in each category. So anyhow, let's start out in the apprentice category, in the people or apprentice skill level. We got that on the side here. There we go. Now I don't have to look at me. All right, are you going to be able to show the people receiving their awards? I hope so. Okay. In the apprentice category, apprentice skill level class, people category, first award goes to Michelle Giesler for Little Indian. I did click on it and it didn't. There it is. Just a little Indian. Just the arrow. Yeah, you guys confused me by giving me an Apple computer. Okay. Oh. So did Michelle get her ribbon? Mm-hmm. She's not here. Okay, the second, still in the apprentice class, we have a people category, second place winner, to Tracy Rees for Bewitched. Is it Reyes? I thought you said Rees last week. Okay, I must apologize to Tracy. Tracy asked me at the beginning of the competition if I could make sure that her awards or her entries would not be presented one right after the other during the competition. I have absolutely no control over that. And they were. Yes, they were. I don't know why that it's done. It's a random number generator that generates a couple numbers. They were 1,000, 2,000 numbers apart. And for some reason, we got 2 of them from her. Fortunately, I was able to put the break in the middle so that we didn't have to have one on the screen the whole time. So we will continue on in the apprentice class people category. First place goes to Michelle Geisler, I don't know. For the Painted Lady of Diodes Muertos. In the apprentice class, once again, places. First place goes to David Lim for Los Angeles. I guess I should say Los Angeles, but that's Los Angeles there. The next one we have here is in the apprentice category, open miscellaneous. First place went to Tracy Reyes. Don't tell me this thing got them mixed up again. It did. This was Tracy Reyes, had Who's the Witchiest of Them All? Now we go to the cell phone category in the apprentice class. Third place to Jason Baird for Off the Grid. Off the Grid. And in the cell phone category, we go to second place, Jason Baird for Almost there. Almost there. The scores are on the ribbons. I don't have them on my sheet here. So these the scores this time were a little low, but they were very consistent, and the judges were all very close to each other. It wasn't any wild one judge giving a lot higher marks than another. We're all very close. So we did an analysis, or Russ did one. Dave Fickey did the analysis, that's right. And he did a good job. So thank you, Dave. All right, the next one I've got here is second place under cell phone, almost there. That was the one we just saw. First place from David Lynn, Oasis in Desert. Oasis in Desert. And David's not here today either. Now let's see. The title slides got all mixed up, as we were afraid they would, but if we'd have, I don't know why it's not doing it, but in the intermediate category, we have in the animal category, second place to Kelly Tilson for Eye on You. Eye on You. Kelly here today? Next, we have intermediate class animal, first place to Wayne Purcell for On the Alert. In the intermediate class, close-up category, first place to Carlos Osegua. Carlos, I apologize. My Spanish is terrible. Osegueda. Osegueda, it looks like. Yellow coneflower. Was a tough one to get, Carlos. That's very good. And in the first place, that was the first place there for Carlos. Mm-hmm. In intermediate people, second place goes to Heidi Wilson, Fountain Family Phone. And first place goes to Bill Bonnell for Rocky Start. Rocky Start. Oh, well done, Bill. In the intermediate class, photojournalism.
Bill's picture didn't show.
Second place goes to Stephanie Billings. I was supposed to send her a note to tell her husband's sick, and she had to stay home and take care of him. So after Stephanie, we have here in the intermediate class, photojournalism category. First place to Dave Garner for transonic vapor cloud on F-35. Something to be said for being at the right place at the right time. In the intermediate class, places category, second place, Wayne Purcell, Fang and Friend. Fang and Friend. In the intermediate class, places category, first place to Bill Bonnell for Colorado Colors. In the intermediate class, open miscellaneous category, first place to Kelly Tilson, Study in Grayscale. Okay. Next in the intermediate class, cell phone category, honorable mention to Dave Dave Garner, for fighting the Rishi fire. That's third place. No, I'm sorry. Dave had honorable mention. Dave was honorable mention, fighting the Rishi fire.
Speaking of,
It looks like a picture I recognize.
Yeah. Well, here's a ribbon you can recognize there.
now,
Yeah, I was just driving by and I saw the old people.
That's proof of the old adage that the best camera for the job is the one you got with you. Absolutely. That's a good shot.
Thank you.
congratulations.
In the intermediate class, category cell phone again. Third place to Heidi Wilson, Purple Iris. Got mixed up again, huh? In the intermediate class, category of cell phone, second place to Nick Kohler, Bombs Bursting in Air. In the intermediate class, cell phone category, first place to Stephanie Billings, Sunrise in Provence. Well done, Stephanie. In the advanced now, animal category, honorable mention, Judith Sparhawk, Knock Knock, Who's There? Judith also assisted us by being a scorekeeper, so thank you for that, Judith. In the advanced class, animal category, third place, Deborah Sibley, Ghosts of the Mountains. Deborah's not here. The advanced class, category of animal, second place, Jim Hendon, Wings over Owens Lake. Jim's not here, but I can't believe one of the judges said, well, it didn't have enough birds in it. I thought there was plenty of birds. That's a great picture. All right. In first place, no stranger to first place in the animal category, Ann Kramer. Could you take the picture already? In the advanced class, close-up category, third place, I'm sorry, honorable mention to Dennis Taylor for Supercar. In the advanced class, close-up category, third place to Stan Fry for Wrap It Up. And competing against himself, Stan Fry has a first place winner for Parallel Universe Proof. And I skipped one. There's Parallel Universe Proof. And I skipped Judith's picture. She had second place, Sacred Fragrant Moonflower. Moving on to the advanced class people category. Honorable mention goes to Dennis Taylor for Have Fun. In the advanced class people category, third place to John Foreman, concentration.
I love about the photos from the powwow is we had a powwow speaker, Brian, and then we had a powwow field trip, and now we have powwow winners. So, I mean, that's the full circle.
That's the cycle.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's awesome.
And some excellent pictures. It's really hard to take non-touristy pictures to have a really good quality artistic photograph, and you guys have all done well on that. In the advanced class, the people category, A Warrior for Today by Deborah Seidler. In the people category, advanced, first place, Deborah Dorothy, bioluminescent wonder. You did that to me on purpose, didn't you, Deborah? You wanted me to say bioluminescent. In the advanced class, photojournalism category, first place goes to Brian Spears for the Golden Chief.
Upstairs.
I got a laugh out of this one, by the way, Brian. And Brian typoed his entry and it said Golden Chef, which I caught, and then we changed it. It's Golden Chief, and I knew that's what you meant. In the advanced class, places category, third place to me, Carl Detro for Kimberly Moon. Or is it? There it is, Kimberly Moon. And in the second place, in the advanced class places, Rick Strobaugh for Sunset at the Pier. I must have missed, I missed Donald Purdy for honorable mention for Cottonwood Creek. There he is. And in the advanced class category places, first place went to Bruce Herwig for Hollywood View. And in the advanced class places, first place, Don, you sat down too fast. First place, Bridge over San Joaquin River, Don Purdy.
I think we're done. with,
Not quite.
Oh,
That's the one.
oh, we got a drum roll.
We have a drum roll. For best of show, those of you who were in attendance at the competition, there was no doubt. Once again, Deborah Dorothy, best of show for Atlantic Puffin. I missed a mischief, huh? You had one in there and open miscellaneous? Yeah.
Well, this is good because you do have to, you know, to take care and okay. So, make sure you get the rest.
I don't know. We will put those out on the web when we figure them out. I counted them twice, 3 times.
Is it Armando? Okay. What's that? The big one. Should be good. Okay. Probably about a gig. I don't know if it's a gig. You want just airplay it or air? You're spinning.
I know that, I remember seeing that one and I thought.
Okay, we are going to take a slight intermission break. Armando is here from Tamron. Let's hear it for Armando. All the way in from Las Vegas. And we're in process of transferring USB sticks and making sure that our Zoom viewers can do it. So chitty chat amongst yourselves. We'll be back.
Hey, Russ. Russ, can you hear me? Nope. Who can tell me, where do you get photos of puffins?
Probably Iceland, do you think?
That's what I was wondering. I know she's had that opportunity.
Yeah.
SeaWorld?
What was that?
SeaWorld.
SeaWorld.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's a lot closer.
I can afford that trip.
Mhm.
Stan, I really like your picture.
Which one?
The one that I'm looking at right now, the chicken.
Oh, my chicken? Yeah, that was
that's
that
really
Cactus
cute.
Mart up in the high desert. I was up at Cactus Mart in the high desert and I had my camera with me, and they have these tame chickens that are really part of the business there. And this one was very friendly. And she let me take a bunch of her pictures, and it was really the cutest thing.
Yeah. Well, I love her eyeball.
Oh yeah. The
Yeah,
eyes
I
are
don't
the
think I've
eyes tell it
ever
all.
looked at a chicken so close.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you gotta see it in full res. Beat
Does anyone
shooting
know how
spiders and
Frank
snakes. What's
does,
that?
does, does anyone know how Frank Peel is doing?
I didn't know he was sick.
Oh no, I mean he moved.
I knew he moved. I texted him a week or so ago, asked him a question about an old piece of camera gear I found, and he never responded back. So I don't know if his cell phone number changed. I don't know if he's,
Hmm.
Oh
if
really?
he's okay or anything. I haven't heard from him,
I don't
which is
know.
unlike him to not respond to me. So yeah,
Yeah, I miss seeing him.
yeah.
Frank is a fixture.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. Amazing person.
Yeah, I got a lot of my macro inspiration from Frank.
Mm-hmm. He pretty much introduced me to photography, and I really appreciate that so much. I took his Photoshop class. I had to take it 2 times though for me to catch on to it. But he did a good job.
Some people never catch on.
I know.
No, I mean it's God honest truth. They just they can take as many classes as they want until it sinks in. It's a tough road to hoe.
Yeah.
There's some software that's like that, it's like the Cadillac. Yeah, it's very, or it can be complicated. It'll do whatever you want it to do, but it can do so much more, it seems. I keep discovering things. I want to take a couple of classes to up my game in in mask in Photoshop.
You know what? I use On One. Are you familiar with that program?
No.
I've been using it since it's version 10, so I think they're at 24 right now. That's the best masking software I've found out there.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
What's it
Hands
called
down.
again?
On One.
On
ON,
One.
the number one.
I think I've heard it.
Oh yeah, they're big. Yeah, it's great program.
I don't
And they have
think I have.
plugins for Lightroom and Photoshop and all that stuff. Actually, I'm in On One right now looking at a shot of a bee getting nectar off a flower this morning. So while we're waiting.
So
This is Jason. I use On One too. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Isn't the masking just superior to everything else in that damn I love that thing.
Yeah, and
Yes.
they've really done some really good upgrades recently too.
Oh yeah. I love that program. So I got tons of presets I've created over the years in it and stuff. And if I want to go to something where I've done a look and feel before, it's easy just to go grab that preset and bam, pull it up, go in and customize it, whatever I want to do. Yeah,
Mike,
I
did you
I
see
don't know.
my chat note? That was Island Park, Idaho, the first picture, and then the second one was the Mist Trail in Yosemite.
I did see that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm frequently looking for places to explore, although the years are kind of catching up to me now.
I understand.
You know,
I say screw the golden years.
yeah. But I remember my dad was 70 years old and he wanted to climb San Gorgonio. So I thought, this is great. This is great. And I took him up San Gorgonio and he struggled, but he made it. We overnighted on Fish Creek Saddle and then went to the summit the next day. And now here I am approaching that same age, and I understand about how he was feeling at the time.
Yeah, you just gotta take your time and one foot in the front of the other. We spent a long time on that trail.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
we did it.
just yeah, go your own pace. Don't rush.
I find that going in and out of the supermarket anymore.
Yeah, I start my exercise with getting out of the bed and I end with going back in.
Yeah, I keep getting invitations to go back to Whitney, and my wife says no.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, I went twice, and the second time I did have to spend some time in the hospital after coming
That's
down.
not good.
I know, yeah.
Dude, that's not a vacation. That's a horror movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I had pulmonary edema, and
Oh
that
no.
that did not. Yeah,
That probably didn't set well.
it didn't. It didn't. It really didn't set well for my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
tough climb. I've never been up Whitney, but I've been by it.
I've been over it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. You get up there and look down, and almost
Everything
everything is
over there is
below you.
amazing. Everything's amazing over there. Everything in that area, John Muir and
Yeah, it really is.
Tioga
All
Pass.
along the Sierras, there's just so many gorgeous venues, great hiking, and some easier hiking than Whitney.
For sure.
Let's see.
Do you know about Laurent Montres? He came to the camera club many, many years ago. He's a Frenchman, and he has all these wonderful books about photography in the Southwest, and they are really helpful, and it has all different places to go, and he's an excellent photographer.
Hmm.
And it's Laurent, Martres. Just if you're interested.
Okay.
Okay, we are ready to go. All right, now Armando has been with Tamron for how many years now? 9.5 years. Before that, he's worked with Nikon, with Canon, with Sony, Nikon and Sony, and now with Tamron for 9 years. Loves macro photography. Looking forward to hearing about the latest and greatest from Tamron. One of the reasons I wanted to bring Tamron in is, one, I'm a Tamron lens user, but also we have some great partners out there in the photography world. You know, the lens, invest in good lenses. That's going to up your game as much as anything. So wanted to hear from Tamron. I reached out and they said, yes, we can bring somebody down. And I'm super excited that Armando was able to make it. Yes, Russ.
Hey, I was watching a video on YouTube, and I thought it was Tamron, and they were showing you how they make the lenses and the process it goes through to get them in there. I found it extremely interesting to watch. I've also taken apart 2 Nikon lenses that were broken. Sit there and see, well, how are these things? They're not easy to take apart.
They're not.
All right.
They are not.
You want to hold this or want me to flip it on you? Okay, there you go. It's all you.
All righty. So, hello, everyone. My name is Armando Flores. I'm with Tamron. We are now known as Tamron Americas. We distribute to the entire American continent. And yes, I do cover the entire continent because I hablo español. So they send me down south, Central South America, been to Costa Rica, Guatemala, Peru, Ecuador. I'm looking forward to hitting Argentina and Chile soon. But anyway, enough about that. I started my photography career back in high school. My sister and I put our pennies together, went out, bought a camera, and just took off from there. I decided to study photojournalism while I was going to college. I saw a newspaper ad. We all remember those, right? Applied for a position at Nikon and I got it. So I never practiced photojournalism. I jumped right into Nikon. I started in the service department for about a year and change. And then I moved into pro services, NPS. And I was in NPS for about 20 of my tenure at Nikon. I was there for almost 22 years. And at the last 7 years, I actually ran the West Coast NPS department. However, they decided to close it down.
What is MPS?
Nikon Professional Services.
Okay.
So what we did is we dealt with the professionals. If you were a working professional that made your living solely in photography, we would help you. Your lens went down. I needed repaired, or your camera, whatever. You would send it in for service. We would expedite it. But if you were in need of something, we would ship it to you so that you can use it while it was being serviced, all free of charge. The only thing you paid for was shipping cost, if any, because you could also drive down there and pick it up. But anyway, that was Tamron. That was Nikon. And then Sony, I did Sony for about 5.5 years. They got in trouble with their laptops, the TVs. They were both bringing the bottom line down. So they decided to sell off computers, split the TV division into their own entity, but they also let go 40% of the workforce. So, I'm somebody from Tamron said, hey, you looking for something? I go, I might be. So anyway, 9.5 years fast forward, here I am. So anyway, who is Tamron? Well, the company is a Japanese company, and it was established back in 1950 by a gentleman named Takeyuki Arai. So Tamron's been in existence for 73 years now, and they've always been in the optics end of it. The very first product was a pair of binoculars. Sony's very first product was a rice cooker. So there you go. So anyway, Tamron is actually the leader and pioneer of aspherical lens technology. So what is that? Well, it's a fancy way of making new shaped lenses. They are able to produce hybrid aspherical, injected molded aspherical, and glass molded aspherical lens elements, such as that one, which is a very difficult process. It's a lot like the silicon wafers for sensors. You get a big giant wafer like this, and then they stamp out the sensors for cameras. Well, usually if you get 10, you're probably going to throw away 3 or 4. Same with this process. They actually have to make a mold, they melt the glass, they pour it in there, and then they have to fine tune it and polish it. And if there's any aberrations, they have to discard it and start all over again. So the process is rather arduous. But what aspherical lens technology allows the manufacturers to do is produce lenses that are smaller and lighter. And in some cases, in the Tamron's case, a lot less expensive as well. So there are different types of glass that goes into the manufacturing of a lens. And here's a quick snapshot of what those lenses are. So again, molded aspherical, hybrid aspherical, low dispersion glass, extra low dispersion glass, and in a very rare instance, the extra refractive index lenses. That is used on our 24 to 70 2.8 for the DSLRs. So as you can imagine, not all lenses are created equal. Here are 3 different Tamron lenses. They are all 35 millimeter. They are all for full frame cameras. But the biggest difference, they're all for digital cameras. The biggest difference, other than the cost of the lens, is the actual physical glass that goes into it. You're looking at a 35 millimeter 2.8 over there on the on your left, about $250. Then you go to the middle one, which is a 35 1.8, about $600. And then you have the 35 millimeter 1.4. That's it used to be $900. The price dropped down to $700. So, but once again, the biggest difference is the type of glass that goes into the lens. Other than their aperture and their price point. But as you can see, the 35 millimeter has 14 elements in 10 groups, and it is utilizing 3 aspherical lens elements and 4 low dispersion glass elements. That's why it is sharp, and it is a little bit heavier than the rest, and it's a little more money. There was an actual, the engineers, the company president said, you have a task. You are going to go and create a lens with these specifications. They chose a 35 millimeter 1.4. 5 years later, because as you know, the art lens was already out and the Zeiss was already out and everyone had a 35 1.4. Tamron did not. So the SP line, the super performance lens line from Tamron, which is equivalent to the L glass and the GM from Sony, up in that echelon of lenses. So they said, make a SP lens to, so that, we can bring it out for our 40th SP anniversary. So they went out and they created the sharpest 35 millimeter 1.4 ever made at that time. And, you can read all about it on the internet. But anyway, it's a manufacturer can make any type of lens that they want. The aperture is not a big deal. The problem is the price point. If they make a lens that is a 1.0, it's an 85 1.0, let's say, for example. It's going to be huge, it's going to be heavy, but it's also going to be very expensive. How many of those are they going to sell? Probably not many. So therefore, that's the reason they don't really make those. A lot of the manufacturers that make the big super telephoto lenses, it's usually a loss leader for them because they're really not going to recoup the R&D. They kind of bring it up with other things that they sell. Anyway, another thing to consider when manufacturing a lens are the autofocus motors. So Tamron decided to establish the motor manufacturing. They brought it in-house and they started doing it from scratch. So they came out and anytime that there's a need for a different motor, depending on the lens design or the weight of the optics or whatever, the engineers will go out and design that particular motor to fit that need. So here are some of the motors that they've fabricated in-house, the USDs, ultrasonic. You can read all that there. The latest is the voice coil extreme torque drive, or VXD motors. Those are linear motors. So they focus faster, they're quieter, and they are a lot more precise than the other motors ever were ever that they made were ever possible. So just like every manufacturer, there are lens designations. So it's important to know that you are looking at the lens that's going to fit your camera. So let's take it from the top here. Nikon is FX and DX, full frame FX, crop sensor DX. So our designation, DI, is simply means digitally integrated. Lenses with the DI name on them, those lenses are designed for full frame DSLR style cameras. DI Roman numeral 2. Those are for DSLR style cameras, but now those are the cameras that have the APS-C size sensor, the smaller crop sensor. And then mirrorless cameras came along, so then they brought out the DI3. DI3 is for full frame mirrorless, and DI3A is for mirrorless crop sensor. So now that that's all out of the way, anytime you pick up a Tamron lens, you look at the barrel, it's going to tell you exactly what that lens has or what it does. And we'll go through it in a second. So Tamron does manufacture lenses for different mounts. We have EF and EFS lenses, Fuji X mount lenses, Nikon F mount, and Nikon Z mirrorless mount lenses, and of course the Sony E mount lenses as well. So anytime you pick up a Tamron lens, you're going to see this on the barrel. It's going to be stamped right on there. SP, super performance. That is our highest quality type of lens. The SP moniker was brought out back in 1979. So the DI, now we know what type of camera that lens is supposed to fit on. A full frame digital in this case, DSLR style, and so on and so forth. USD is the type of motor that particular lens has. And if you see a G2, that means that's the second generation or second incarnation of that particular type of lens. So it's pretty simple. Now, one thing that I always tell customers when I'm doing a demo or a presentation at a camera store is that it's very important to, when you go out and choose a lens, it's important to consider what camera you're going to be mounting it on. And what I mean by that is the resolution of the camera, or the pixel count of the camera that you might be using in 3 or 4 years. Because lenses are designed in conjunction with a crop of cameras. So let's take a step back. When digital first came out, you were using film lenses or analog lenses on those digital cameras, which was perfectly fine because the megapixel count of those cameras were 5 megapixels, 6 or 7 megapixels. Well, film, the resolution of film was far beyond that. But then as the cameras started getting better, the pixel count started rising, and then you had cameras that had 12, 14 megapixels. So now they're on par with film. Now we have cameras that have 50, 61 megapixels. So the lenses have to be able to resolve the pixel count that the cameras have. So I would say if you're thinking about getting a lens, talk to the rep and say, well, when was this lens designed? If that lens was designed 10 years ago, guess what? It's probably not going to resolve 50 megapixels. So Tamron lenses that were manufactured after 2010, they will resolve up to about 24 megapixels. Tamron lenses designed and manufactured after 2014 will give you about up to 50 megapixels. Lenses that came out 2020 and beyond, well, there's not a sensor out there yet that can tell us how sharp the lens is going to be. So that gives you an idea. So food for thought. So what else goes into a lens? What other technology do you have? Well, we have a lot of manufacturers have image stabilization. They have VR, that's Nikon, IS, OS, steady shot. Tamron calls it BC, or vibration compensation. But the one thing to know is that they're not all created equal. Tamron actually created and patented the triaxial image stabilization system. So what that simply means is that Tamron image stabilization is able to correct for 3 axes. It corrects for horizontal movement, it corrects for vertical movement, and diagonal movement. So regardless of how you are holding, any movement that you might be causing can be corrected. Some manufacturers only correct for 2 axes, horizontal and vertical. So there you go. And we also license our VC technology. So if there's a manufacturer out there that says, yes, we have triaxial correction, well, guess who they bought it from? Anytime that there's a need, there's a new lens design, a new lens is being developed, and if there's a new need for a VC unit, it's created in-house. So what does VC, what does image stabilization really do? What does it really all mean? Well, when we're hand holding a camera and lens, we are creating movement. And what image stabilization does, it keeps the light path nice and straight so that when it hits the sensor, it's not blurry. There is a rule of thumb out there that says that if you're hand holding a camera and a lens, that your shutter speed should equal that of your focal length. So if you have a 500 millimeter lens, your shutter speed should be about a 500th of a second if you're hand holding. Now, some of us are a little better than others, but, when doing that. So if you have a triple shot latte that morning, you may need a faster shutter speed to, to account for that compensation. I was sent to Alaska for a workshop, and I've never been. And I wanted to photograph bald eagles out in the wild. So I did my research and I went out to this park, and they're supposed to be there. No bald eagles. I did take a boat tour to the glaciers, and the captain, gets on the horn. He says, "Oh, there's an eagle perched on the outcropping out there." I thought he was going to slow down, stop, and let us take a picture. No, he keeps right on going. So I run into the cabin, grab my camera lens, slap on the 150 to 600 millimeters, and I'm hand holding on a moving boat. That was shot at a 1/60th of a second at 600 millimeters. So that's a testament to image stabilization. And if there's any doubt, the little hash marks that you see there, those are raindrops. So you know the shutter speed was slow. Other technology that goes into lenses are microprocessors. So there are dual MPUs, or 2 microprocessing systems or units in most Tamron lenses. One of them does the autofocus and the other one does the image stabilization. That is another reason that it works so well. The bad thing, do you remember the chip shortage a couple years ago? Tamron shot themselves in the foot because our lenses took 2 chips. They had to make a very hard decision as to what lenses they were going to discontinue so that they can keep producing the newer lenses that they were going to come out with. So sadly, we used to manufacture 22, 23 different DSLR lenses. We're down to 5. The whole market shifted to mirrorless anyway, so I guess that was a no-brainer, but who knows? So some of the newer lenses that Tamron is now designing are equipped with artificial intelligence for the image stabilization. So what happens is that if you are shooting video at this point, and if you're using one of the Tamron lenses that has AI technology, it will actually learn your movement and it will then start correcting that movement. So it's not guessing anymore. It's going to know who drank that latte and it's going to correct for that. Other technology that goes into a lens are the lens coatings. And these are very important because they do certain things. E-band coating is one of the coatings that we put on there, and that is extended bandwidth and angular dependency. That is a mouthful. But really what that lens coating does, it allows for better light transmission. And it also suppresses internal reflections. There is a secondary coating that is put on lenses, and that is called the B-bar, or the broadband anti-reflective coating. Now, these reduce ghosting and lens flare, and when you're shooting in backlit situations, as you can see, the lens flare is very, very minimal. You can see it there. And on this one, you can barely see it. So that is what those coatings do. They give you better, sharper pictures with more contrast in all lighting situations. There's another technology that is being put on the front of the lenses now, and that is called the fluorine coating. Back in the day, again, 22 years at Nikon, when I started work, the building wasn't completed yet. There were electrical cables coming out of the ceiling, but I was supposed to do absolutely nothing for 3 weeks until they got everything set up. So the service manager, the Japanese service manager, came out one day and he had us bring out this big sheet of plywood, and we kind of made a workbench. And then we brought some stools, and he brings out little pieces of glass. And then he proceeds to put a fingerprint on them. And he shows us the technique on how to clean lenses. So I cleaned front lens elements for 3 weeks, 8 hours a day. He says, I was lucky. He says, in Japan, they do that for 6 months. So anyway, but now it couldn't be any easier with the fluorine coatings, because if anything gets on there, you just take a lens cloth and simply wipe it right off. Other technology that goes into Tamron lenses are weather seals or weather resistance. Believe it or not, we do that to every single one of our lenses. So if you are picking up a Tamron lens, there is no need to ask, is this weather sealed? From our $250 lens all the way up to our most expensive lens, which is $1,900. So how weather resistant? Well, there is no rating that we give to the lenses. When I talk to end users, I say, well, if you're not comfortable in that amount of rain, neither is the lens. So on that boat trip that I took to Alaska, I neglected to say that it was raining. It rained for 7.5 hours out of the 8 hours. And that 150 to 600 got wet. I would go in, wipe it off, dry myself off, go back out there. So it got wet for 7.5 hours. So it really does work. There's other technology being incorporated into our lenses now. Some of the lenses now have a USB-C port, just like your cell phone, just like the way you charge it. That port allows you, the end user, to do your own firmware upgrades. So no more buying little hockey pucks or other things, so that, or sending it into the factory so they can do a firmware upgrade. You can do that yourself. Some of the lenses are also very intelligent, and you can actually program those lenses to do certain things. But that's a totally different story. We'll talk about that on the side if you want, because I've got a whole bunch of slides here to go through. Another thing that Tamron prides itself in is giving you the best MOD, or minimum object distance. In other words, Tamron lenses allow you to get pretty close to your subjects. A lot of the lenses will give you a 1:3 reproduction ratio. So for those of you that know the macro nomenclature, that is that the subject will appear 1/3 its physical life size onto the sensor. We also manufacture lenses that will give you a 1:2 reproduction ratio right out of the lens, and it's not a macro lens. We have lenses like the 70-180, the 50-400, the prime lenses, the 18-300. All those lenses will give you a 1:2 reproduction ratio. And again, once again, they're not macro lenses. We're going to talk a little bit about lenses and lens categories. The all-in-one lens. This is a lens category that was created or established by Nikon back in 1992. I remember I was working at not Nikon, sorry, Tamron. I was working at Nikon when Tamron came out with this lens. It was a crazy 28mm to 200. And we're all going like, that is odd. I mean, this lens can't be any good. Well, we were kind of sort of right. And the first models were okay. But nowadays, Tamron makes lenses that go from 18mm to 400. Now, can you imagine? That covers 4 or 5 lenses that you would normally take in your bag. Now, is it going to be the sharpest lens in your bag? No. It's not. Is it going to be the fastest lens in your bag? No. But it's going to be the most versatile and practical. And will it resolve up to 40+ megapixels? Yes, they will. So as you know, an all-in-one lens is going to be very versatile. It's going to allow you to capture all sorts of pictures right out of one lens. Anytime I go to a demo, I was just in Las Vegas at BNC Camera for 3 days, and customers would come up and occasionally say, well, I'm just starting in photography. And the first words out of my mouth is that if you're just starting in photography, you really don't know what type of photography you're going to, end up doing. I started sports. I did professional sports for 17 years. I don't do that any longer. I do a lot of traveling. So it's a lot of landscape, a lot of street photography, a lot of this and that. So it's a good way to get your feet wet in photography and then decide, yes, this is what I like. Then you get a lens that specializes in that. So save you a few bucks there. A lot of times customers will go to a camera store and say, okay, I want this camera and I want this lens, and that lens. And they're like all over the place. So $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 later, they figure out, oh, I don't use these 2 lenses. I'm only using this one. So anyway, good way to get started. 18-300 for Sony E-mount and Fuji X. Now, an interesting thing about this lens, now this is a DI3-A, so it's mirrorless crop sensor. It's a very sharp lens. I'll be honest with you. Anytime I get a new lens, they send me an email, say, oh, here's your invoice. I know to expect the box in about 3 to 4 days. And what I do is I dust off my bike. I get my backpack, get my cycling shoes, hop on the bike, and go to the beach. I live close to Venice Beach, so that's where I do my lens testing. So a lot of the stuff you see are from there. And what I typically do is I play with the lens. I see how sharp it is. I see how fast it focuses. And most importantly, I do a shutter speed test. How slow of a shutter speed can I shoot and still get a sharp picture at varying focal lengths with that particular lens? Because a lot of my images, I would say 85% of them are done handheld. And some of these lenses are very fast. This is a 3.5 to 6.3 at 300 millimeters. So that gives me an idea when I'm shooting that, okay, if I drop below the shutter speed, now I'm going to have to do the thing that I don't like, and that's up my ISO. So that's the way I play it. So I know that some lenses I can handhold 30th of a second, a 15th of a second. I can do a half a second with the 15 to 30. The 90 macro, I can't not handhold that thing lower than a 60th. I don't know why, but that's why I do that test. So it tells me what I can do with that lens. So anyway, the 18-300 is the world's first zoom lens for mirrorless that gives you a 16.6 reach, but it's a crop sensor lens. So anytime a manufacturer puts 18-300 and it's for crop sensor, don't believe them, because it's not an 18-300. You still have to do the crop factor. If you have a Nikon, a Fuji, a Sony, a Leica, a Pentax with APS-C size sensor, the crop factor is 1.5. So if it's a 300 millimeter, guess what? It's a 450 angle of view that you're actually going to get. If it's a Canon APS-C, I'm sorry, the math is a little bit more difficult because the crop factor is 1.6. So you do the math on 300 times 1.6. Again, minimum object distance on this lens is 39 inches at the telephoto end, which is reasonable. But once you go down to 18 millimeters, you can go down to 5.9 inches or 2 millimeters. I actually put that $2 bill right on top of the lens element and took that picture. That's how close you can get with that lens. 18-400. This lens has been out now for about 5-6 years now. Crazy reach, 18-400. Once again, I take these lenses out and I go out and I play with them and I see what they can do. My boss, I live in Southern California, always have. My boss decided that he thought it was funny to send me to Minneapolis mid-November, about 4 or 5 years ago. It was -27, thank you. What do? I take pictures. So I go out, I go shooting. So it was -27. So I took this picture from the comfort of my hotel room. Turned off the lights, opened the curtain, and I said, it's Minnesota. It's 9:30 at night. Someone is going to walk down that street. 45 minutes later, sure enough. So patience. I was born with a lot of patience. 18-400, used for just about anything. This is not a portrait of a skateboard. He was actually just going down at the Venice skate park, down the ramp, and I'm just following him. Follow focus and just at the right shutter speed, press the button. It looks like he's just kind of posing, but he wasn't. One thing that this lens has is something that was never done before, and that it had a crazy extension. 3 tubes would extend out. The most they've ever done was 2. We also happen to have an all-in-one lens, and the world's first, that starts at f2.8. This is for Sony mirrorless. f2.8 to f5.6 once you get to 200 millimeters. Crazy sharp. This lens practically lives in my camera bag when I'm taking out the Sonys. I shoot Fuji, I shoot Nikon, I shoot Sony because we make lenses for those cameras. So they send me the camera, so I have to play with them. So sometimes it'll be a Fuji day, sometimes it'll be a Sony day. It just depends on what I feel like. But anyway, sharp, versatile, compact, lightweight. I mean, you can carry this thing all day. Again, 28-200. And it, like I said, it practically lives in my camera bag. Great for travel, great for street photography, just about anything. Another category that we're all familiar with is the standard zoom lens. These lenses are, as you know, perfect for everyday photo opportunities. They are considered to be the bread and butter lens for professional photographers. I would say 70-75% of pictures are taken within this focal range. The trilogy, the trio, 24-70, 70-200, and then your wide angle lens, whether it's Canon 16-35, Nikon 14-24, or the discontinued Tamron 15-30, 2.8. And professional photographers, I've dealt with them for a very long time. This is usually one of the lenses that they purchase first. And anytime I go anywhere, you will find one of these in my camera bag. A standard zoom lens, depending on the camera body that I'm using. 17-70 for Fuji and Sony. Crop factor, 27.5 to 105, 2.8. Very sharp, very fast. And we just came out with a crazy focal length, a 20-40. Again, very lightweight, very sharp. This was designed with the blogger in mind. So you can put the camera in the palm of your hand and walk around and, video yourself doing whatever all day. And a 28-75 for mirrorless. Well, why not a 24-70? Well, Tamron decided if we cut 4 millimeters off the bottom, we're going to be able to make the lens smaller, lighter, and less than half the cost of a traditional 24 to 72.8. I did go to Peru and I took 3 days off, and I did go out to Machu Picchu, knowing that I was going to have to hike at 10,000 plus feet of elevation, and I had to carry my own supplies plus water. I decided to take one camera and 2 lenses, 17 to 28, 28-75. But perhaps this is one of the newer additions to Tamron. I consider this now to be the new standard, not a 24-70, but a 35 to 150. We are finding that a lot of professional photographers are replacing their 24-70, 70-200 combination with a 35 to 150. One of the reasons that this lens starts at f2, and it only goes down to 2.8 once you reach the 83, 84 millimeter range. Then it goes to 2.8. As you know, 35 to 135 is the ideal portrait zoom range. So this lens just fits the bill. Event photography, whether you do weddings or, or studio work, it's the right focal range. Ideal for travel. It's not a small lens. It's right over there. You can feel it for yourself. But once again, I tell people it starts at f2. So yes, you're going to do a little bit of sacrificing there. Great for landscapes also, travel, or anything else that you will run across. Another lens category, telephotos. We do have quite a few choices in this category for different camera mounts, of course. 70 to 180, 70 to 200 to 8, 70 to 300, 50 to 400, 100 to 400, 150 to 500, 150 to 600. When I first got that 50 to 400, I'm looking at it, I'm going, what are we thinking? What's the thought of this lens? So once again, go to my backpack, hop on the bike, right to the beach, mount it on there, and I start shooting just people doing stuff, and I go, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to change lenses because it starts at 50. That's the whole deal. And it is sharp. I use it on a Sony R4, 61 megapixel, and it's got plenty of resolution for that. 70 to 180. We have a second incarnation of that lens already, but we still have the first one in the lineup, so I have to show both. Anyway, this lens came out about 4 years ago. Why a 70 to 180? Once again, if we take 20 millimeters off the top, we're able to make it smaller, lighter, and more compact, and at less than half the cost of a traditional 70-200. Let's pick on Sony. Sony has the GM version 2. It's $2,800 when it's not on sale. Tamron's G2 version, $1,299. And you can shoot them both side by side, and you tell me if you can see over $1,000 difference in the quality. So it weighs 28.6 ounces, and it's about 5.9 inches. And it is sharp. The second generation, we've improved it. We added the USB-C port, so you can do your updates. You can also customize the lens in certain ways for certain shooting applications. And we added VC, image stabilization. The first version did not have it. We were relying on the camera's image stabilization, but now we put it into this lens. So it is a new lens formula, so it is sharper. And the processors have been tweaked, so this lens focuses faster and it tracks focus much better. How the focus adjustments are down to 0.005 microns, which is 1/10 the width of a human hair. That is how small of movements it can make. And it's very fast. It's got the VXD motors, so the linear motors. 20 elements in 15 groups, different formula than the other one. The other one was 19 elements in 14 groups. And yes, it is sharp. I cropped in and zoomed. You can see the stitches. You can see the logo of the ball. Now, the interesting thing about these lenses is that they both have different minimum object distance or how close they focus. The first generation, 33.5 inches throughout the zooming range. Whether it was 70 or 180 millimeters, it didn't change. You can be at the same distance. However, one trick that if you switch the autofocus to manual focus, you can get down to 10.6 inches and you would get a magnification ratio of 1:2. Don't know how. The engineers kind of said, well, that's a happy accident. The second generation, its minimum focus distance or minimum object distance is 11.8 inches at 70 millimeters and 33.5 at 180. So it did change that. 70 to 300. It is the smallest and lightest 70 to 300 in its class. I first got my sample, and my first impression is, what are we doing? It feels like a toy. It is so light. But then I, once again, put in the backpack, rode to the beach, started taking pictures. I said, this thing is sharp. It's a $600 lens. But it will resolve up to beyond 50 megapixels. One thing that Tamron also has is that we have an Arca Swiss style groove on the tripod collars. Now, somebody told me this. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently one of the engineers in Japan was trolling the internet and saw that the Arca Swiss patent had fallen off. So somehow they got in, so we're able to do that to the, on the lenses. I don't know. That's what they tell me. Anyway, let's continue with the 70 to 200 to 8. This is for full frame digital SLR cameras, fast autofocus, high resolution. This is an SP lens. The criteria for a lens to be called SP has to meet 4 criteria: best weather sealing possible, best optical formula possible, dual MPUs, and the barrels have to be made of metal. So any lens you see with an SP, you know that it fits those 4. The new mirrorless lenses don't have SP. And the reason they don't is because the barrels are made out of polycarbonate. Do they meet the other criteria? Yes, they do. So if you're looking for a lens that's lighter and sharp, the mirrorless lenses are just fine. 7200, ideal for indoor sports, as you know, landscapes too. Portraiture, event photography. There's a landscape shot. There's a cityscape shot, all shot with that particular lens. It's 100 to 400. This is the traditional 100 to 400 that we've all known since the film days. It's an alternative to the 150 to 600. That is the existence of this lens. There are people out there that want at least a 400 millimeter, but they don't want to carry the size and weight of a 150 to 600. So this is a good choice for them because it will also accept teleconverters. So with the small teleconverter, you are now up to at least 600 millimeters and a very good minimum object distance. One thing that Tamron put on some of the telephoto lenses is a flexible locking mechanism for the zoom ring. Not the locking mechanism to transport it, but you can physically lock the zoom ring at any focal length that you desire. Why would you want to do that? Well, you're shooting a baseball game, you're in the dugout, you want to shoot second base, you're at 420 millimeters. You lock it in. This is available in the 150 to 600 and 150 to 500. The 150 to 500 family just got a little crowded. First version was the Sony, then we added the Fuji, now we've added the Nikon version of that lens. Small, compact, pretty lightweight, I would say. And a lot of switches on the lens. Autofocus, manual focus, VC on and off, and VC mode 1, 2, and 3 on the Sony. Each lens is different, and it just, when I first looked at it, it just drove me crazy. Why are they so different? It's got something to do with the licensing back in Japan, but they won't tell us exactly why. So anytime you see a Tamron lens and it has VC mode 1, 2, and 3, the number 1 is optical. You're going to be able to see how much the lens is correcting through the viewfinder. The VC2 is for sports or wildlife. You are panning, you are following the subject. What the lens is doing, it is not going to correct for the movement that you are causing when you have the image stabilization turned on. So you're moving horizontally, it won't correct for that, but it will correct for vertical and diagonal. Funny thing, you go to Nikon and they said, well, yeah, when you're panning, turn VR off. That's odd. Well, that's because they can't switch it off and it doesn't correct diagonal. So anyway, the Fuji version, anybody shoot Fuji here? No? Okay. Anyway, it's a little different. They have a manual focus speed switch instead of a VC on and off, or no, autofocus on and off. And that's because when you're manual focusing with the Fuji camera and you're using the LCD screen, it's going to give you better performance when again, manual focusing through the LCD screen. The Nikon version is a little different as well. This one does not have, it has a manual focus, autofocus. It does not have a VC switch, but it has a linear, non-linear switch. So if you're manual focusing, it's going to change the amount of rotation of the manual focus ring so that if you are fine tuning, if you want to just get to the right exact spot, you use non-linear. If you want to get to that place really quickly, you use the linear. And the 150 to 600. Very fast autofocus, USD motors, high resolution, and again, better weather resistant than its predecessor. This is a G2. And it has a very good minimum object distance down to about, I believe, what is it, 1.8 meters, 86.6 inches, I think that translates to, with a magnificent 4.4 pounds. Yeah. And it gives you a magnification ratio of 1 to 3.7. For a 600 millimeter lens, that's not too shabby. And the 50 to 400, this is that lens that I talked about a little bit. Yes, it starts at 50, and you almost don't have to change lenses. We say in our press release, with unmatched zoom range and high-speed autofocus precision VXD autofocus motors. Again, point of interest of this lens is that it does use artificial intelligence. We took it to Zitácuaro in Mexico, to the Monarch Biosphere. We shot a video using only this lens, and I was able to get 1 to 2 reproduction ratios. So close to a butterfly, and then the whole gamut. Wide angle zoom lenses, another category. And we start out with an 11 to 20. This is a Di3 lens for mirrorless crop sensor, available for Sony and Fuji. Small, lightweight, compact. 17 to 28. Now this is for full frame, mirrorless. And yet another lens for full frame mirrorless. It's 17 to 50 f4 throughout the zoom range. And last but not least, the prime lenses. As you know, prime lenses are usually designed with larger apertures, and they usually have higher resolution than their zoom counterparts. Now, the one thing you need to know about prime lenses is you do need to pick the right one for whatever type of photography that you're going to do. So back in the day in the camera bag, we had 10 different prime lenses. Now with zooms, you can have 3 different zooms. 20 millimeter, and the M1-2 tells you that that lens can focus as close as a 1:2 reproduction ratio. Ultra wide angle lenses, as you know, you can get very close to your subject, and it makes whatever subject you're photographing, if you're that close, appear larger than it really is. This is actually Arches National Park. This is what they call the courthouse. That is a puddle of water. It rained the night before. That is probably 6 by 9 feet. It is not a lake. 24:8. Once again, with 1:2 reproduction ratio. And a 35 millimeter 2.8. These 3 lenses actually share the same barrel. So they look alike if you're looking at them from the side. It makes things a lot simpler for Tamron when they're changing parts. That's why these lenses are economical. The most expensive one is $300. So for low light situations, pretty ideal. Now the 35-1.4, this is the lens that I said that it was, when this lens came out, the sharpest 35-1.4 ever made, and I think it still is. Again, shot on a 61 megapixel camera, there's more resolution than you can ask for.
So
Now you can.
Question, great, okay. So I know that a number of our people in our club love to go out and shoot Milky Way.
Mhm.
But one of the things, that I've noticed is that most of the, very few of the really wide angle lenses will go down to below 2.8, like maybe 1.4, 1.8. Have 50 millimeters that are prime lenses that will go down to 1.8. But I don't see too many 10, 11, 12 millimeters that will go down to 1.4, 1.8.
The reason for that, I would say, is market share. You produce this lens, how many of these lenses are you going to sell? And it's always, we are a publicly traded company, so they're always looking at the bottom line. One of the reasons we really don't play very well in the sandbox when it comes to primes. So we've had a handful of primes, but most of our lenses are zooms.
I've kind of noticed that with a lot of the camera companies out there on the lenses that they make, whether we're talking Nikon, Canon, Fuji, Sony, or whatever. Wider millimeter lens, even the prime lens,
Right.
that will go down to 1.8, which gives you greater longevity of being able to have the lens open a little longer without getting star trek.
Right.
I know Bruce likes to shoot the Milky Way, and he buys an attachment that will rotate the camera to go with the
Oh,
Milky Way.
I would love for Tamron to come out with a 14 f2 at least. But it's one of those things. They did at one point have a 14-8. That was probably about 15 years ago. Once again, they look at the numbers, they see how many did we sell, how many will we sell, is it really cost effective? Some companies, they can subsidize from other things. Canon makes flashes, they make cameras, they make this, and that. So they can say, okay, well, if we do this, then we can kind of, supplement a little bit of that from this division or from this department. All we do is lenses. So they're probably not going to play in that park. But again, I don't know. 2 years ago, people would ask me, are you going to make Fuji lenses? And I said, the market share is so small. I would say, probably not. Guess what? We're making them now. Yes, sir. That's what we're asking. That's what we keep asking ourselves. When are they going to? There's rumors in the industry that we've kind of hear rumblings. Maybe end of next year. We're hoping. I mean, we're ready.
I heard much so.
Well,
I know the problem with Canon.
Yeah.
Is that they have to base specs on the
Yeah.
mirror.
Yeah,
They want to sell the lens, right?
Yep, we license the technology from all the manufacturers, so we pay them a fee. And Canon just isn't, they want to, their corporate line was, we are going to do it once we recoup our R&D for this line. Okay.
So would it be worth getting an adapter and using the Tamron lens
Now,
to reduce the price?
well, yes, I mean, it depends on what lens we're talking about. If you're saying, well, I want a 70 to 200 to 8, I would say absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt that our lens is as good, if not better than theirs. 2470, absolutely. The thing there is that we are down to 5 choices. So it's a 2470, 70 to 200, 100 to 400, 150 to 600, and 3514. That is it for Canon EF EFS. Yeah, they work just fine. Now, the I've heard at this weekend's demo, the reps saying, yes, you can do that, but because of the air gap in there, it's better to have a lens that's closer to the sensor. Yes, I get all that, but I've got $4,000 invested here in lenses. And now you want me to go out and spend $6,000 to replace them? Because these aren't any cheaper. They're even more expensive. So they work fine. There's also an adapter that allows you to use, let's say you have a Nikon Z body of mirrorless, and we don't make a lens for it. Well, you can use all the Sony lenses that we do make on the Nikon. It's about the flange back distance, or where the sensor sits inside the camera. The Nikon F mount was 46 millimeters. The new Nikon Z is 16 millimeters. The adapter that allows you to go F to Z is 30 millimeters. You're just putting in the difference. When a manufacturer designs a lens, it's designed to focus at a very specific distance. And all you're doing is putting that gap back in there.
Okay, there's an online question.
Yes.
Is 150 to 600 out of the Diodes service?
Uh,
150 to 600.
Well, you'd have to, the 150 to 600 is designed for full frame DSLR, and we only make it for Canon and Nikon mount. So they'd have to go out and find an adapter that goes from those mounts to the Sony. But we make a 150 to 500 that mounts directly on the E mount. So we did make a 150 to 600 for Sony A mount, and the Sony A mount to E mount adapter would work, but they would have to go out and find one.
Our speakers once said that he recommended that we go to a website called DxO Mars, look up the lens, give them the numbers between 1 and 50. And sometimes I can find the lens I'm looking at on that, sometimes I can't.
That was true quite some time ago. I hear that lately they've been accepting money to rate a lens. So it's not the way it used to be. You always have to take that with a grain of salt, because, who's paying, are they getting paid, and who's paying? Not bribes. It's like, here, review this lens. And, we send out lenses to people to review all the time. If they request one, we'll send it to them. But we do not say, you have to, say good things about this lens. It's, you say what you feel and what you think. And you go out there and you read those, and some people will, they're not, I say, ooh, ouch. I didn't see that when I used it, but okay.
Is there any showroom anywhere nearby you can see all your lenses? Right there.
I brought it here. Now, it's not all the lenses that we make, but it's a very good chunk of the lenses that we make. Camera store is going to be the best place. Unfortunately, yeah, Pasadena, Sam is the closest. I'll be there Thursday.
They have one down in San Diego.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Over the years, a lot of us have talked about, when we do photography, that if we're setting our camera on a tripod, we turn off vibration
Yes.
reduction, okay? But my question goes back to this. You have a lens that has vibration reduction in it.
Mhm.
And you have a camera body
Mhm.
that has a vibration. Do they actually work together or do they work against each other?
In some combinations, they do work together. So if let's say you use the Sony camera body with the Sony in-lens stabilization, and one gives you 3, the other one gives you 5, and you now have 8-ish, kinda. But yes, they do work together. In some instances, it is turned off. When you mount a Tamron lens on a Sony body, it turns off the steady shot on purpose. Again, Tamron is the largest optical company in the world. We produce more lenses than all of the other companies combined.
But
To
you
me,
now have the 5 lenses.
yes. Well, I'm getting to that. And so, I would walk into a camera store and you see a big Nikon banner, 120 million lenses sold. Well, that's a good number. Tamron produces 7 million lenses a month. But we produce lenses for many different industries, not just photo. This is only less than 20% of what Tamron does. A few years ago, 65% of the lenses in cell phones were Tamron lenses. If you have a car that has a rear view camera, it's probably a Tamron lens. If you fly a drone, probably a Tamron lens. If you have surveillance cameras, probably Tamron lenses. If you've ever gotten a ticket when you cross a red light, you can thank Tamron for that. Tamron lens.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now all of the sensors in cars for autonomous driving, Tamron is now getting into that as well. So we do lenses for a lot of different things. Medical, if a manufacturer of something wants Tamron to make something, they will go ahead and produce it for them, optic-wise.
Armando, our time is catching us.
Yep.
Do you have some closing remarks? I'd love people the opportunity to
yeah.
take a look.
Basically, take whatever the Nikon rep, Sony rep tells you, with a grain of salt, because I was one of them. And we drink the Kool-Aid. I bled yellow for 22 years. And then I find out that, oh no, Nikon doesn't make all of their product. Well, no, they don't. Oh, Sony doesn't make all of the product? No, they don't. So anyway, Tamron also, last thing, Tamron is the largest OEM manufacturer. So out of Tamron factories come lenses that you've probably already bought with somebody else's name on.
Cool,
Is there a way to
going.
email you with more questions if we had a few?
Amazing technology. Those were mostly all your images, right?
Those were all
Amazing photographer, very inspirational.
Get your hands dirty, come out, put some lenses.
We can put our fingers on prints on the lens, right?
Yes, they all have throwing coatings.
Hello.
Will we be able to get
Yep, got it right here.
contact information?
Thank you, everybody from online.
Bruce, will
Great
we
to
be
see
able
you.
to
If you're able to make it
contact
to
Armando?
the
Hello.
Christmas party in 2 weeks, we'd love to have you. All right, bye-bye.